everyone, and welcome to the Being Bipolar podcast. My name is Shameka, and I am your host for this wonderful podcast. This is a podcast that basically is here to support all bipolar people, bipolar 1, 2, but basically to have our own tribe. Because listen, we go through things that a lot of people don't understand, and that's okay, but we understand us. So we want to be a support. We want to show you love and just talk about topics that, hey, many people can't relate to. So today I have a guest, and her name is Anais. I met her in a makeup group because, child, when I say she slays her face, she's well known, world known, globe known. Like she really that girl. But I found that she has been so transparent about her bipolar journey, and so I wanted her to be my first guest because I'm just so in awe of her and everything she has going on and doing for herself. And I see that a lot of people think that when you're bipolar, you can't do anything, or you can't be successful. And we're here to show you that that's not true.
That's not true at all.
So, Anais, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. But first, before we say that, disclaimer, we are not therapists. We are not professionals. We are here to give advice or resources that we have used. So please, check with your therapist, your doctor, your psychiatrist before you take any of our suggestions. Okay. Now, Anais, your turn. Let's introduce you, girl.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anais. I am a Brooklyn-based bipolar type 2 diva with a lot of attitude.
Yes,
I am
yes.
a woman that wears many, many hats, and we'll get into all of that because many of them were they came about during manic episodes. So we'll get to talk about all
Yes.
of that.
Yes, I love it.
We're
I
gonna
love
peel back
it.
the layers.
Yes, there are so many layers.
Plenty. Yeah.
Yes. So I would say I'm just gonna say I am bipolar 1. And so for those people who don't know, there are two types of bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
So there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Many people think that bipolar 2 is
Like a
like
heightened.
it's actually the opposite, yes. And so I like to, even if you're supporting someone who has bipolar disorder, their friend, their spouse, it's important to know the difference, right?
Yes.
So bipolar 2 is, I want to say, maybe the less intense, but you still feel everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't
Yeah.
get it twisted. It's still real.
Absolutely.
Bipolar 1, though, tends to have hallucinations, tends to have a lot of imagery,
Yeah.
just a lot of different things that come with that. So
Mhm.
I am bipolar 1. And I was diagnosed in, I want to say 2018. At first, it was like, okay, you're depressed, you're anxious.
Right.
But I was having a lot of racing thoughts. Like my mind could not turn off. And that was an indication. Like, and first of all, let me just say this. I love therapy. I think everybody should go. But I was going to the same person for so long and they did not diagnose me. So I
Wow.
feel like, so I feel like really there should have been some, maybe a test or something. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I know now people have like tests that they can do, but not saying I'm old, but back then I don't know if they had these tests,
Yeah.
but definitely, if you think you're bipolar, definitely make sure they pay attention to your signs,
Yes.
because I would hate for anybody to be bipolar and dealing with that and not have the right tools, not have the right
Diagnosis. Yeah.
medication or
Oh my
whatever,
gosh.
because it's way different. It's way different,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
So I was diagnosed, and I was really diagnosed because, like I said, I was having racing thoughts, but also I was having hallucinations of my mother who has passed away, and
Mm.
I was having hallucinations of her like pulling me to death, basically.
Wow.
Like I would be in the tub and it would be like, yeah, you need to, harm yourself or whatever. And so I was having very intense hallucinations and different things. And my manic episodes were like, yeah, you can be manic, but no, it was manic, manic, manic. I think
Mm.
the longest I've gone, and we're definitely going to talk about sleep hygiene, but I think the longest I've gone without sleep is 72 hours.
Yeah, mine was not.
And it's
It's
interesting.
horrible. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your diagnosis story and how that was for you.
Being diagnosed was a sigh of relief, but at the same time, it was scary because now life as I always knew it was done. Literally, the minute that I received that diagnosis, my life as I always knew it had to come to an end because I now realized I couldn't function the same way with this knowledge. Now, moving forward, I couldn't be the same person anymore. And it was the
Mhm.
scariest thing, especially now dealing, as a mom of six and at that time being a wife. We're gonna get into that too. But trying to navigate, my God, but trying to navigate through all of that and then realizing now, what if I did receive a diagnosis prior to 2020? What if, the necessary
Mhm.
steps were taken when people were noticing things like I'm always isolated in one minute and the next minute I want to be extremely social, or, one minute I'm extremely happy and I'm grandiose and the next minute I'm just like, well, maybe I don't deserve it. But
Mhm.
no one was
Mhm.
paying attention to those things. And it makes me wonder often, like, what would my life be like now had I gotten my diagnosis so much sooner? There's so many
Yeah.
things that I know for a fact that I would have done differently, but receiving that diagnosis literally has changed my life for the better now because I give myself a lot more grace than I did before. And
Yeah.
I'm realizing
Yeah.
now, okay, you can make a lot of money, but I realize I can also spend a lot of money
Child.
real quick. I mean, I'm broke and I'm just
We
like,
gonna get into that because that's
like
a word.
it's just so many things that I would have done differently, and I wouldn't have been so hard on myself had I just
Yeah.
known.
Yeah. 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 I think that it's important that you said that it made you feel free, right? Because I think some people don't want to get the diagnosis because they're like, oh, well, what does that mean for my future? But
Right.
really, for me, it feels like that means like you now know what you're dealing with. That's just like
Hmm.
a test, right? When
Yes.
you can prepare for the test,
You
you
have a
can
high,
do
yeah,
better. Right,
yeah,
right. Like you have a measure of what you need to do. But if
yes.
you don't know,
You go in
then
blind. Yeah,
you're gonna fail. You're gonna bomb.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I just want to just talk about the actual definition of bipolar disorder. Sponsored by Google.com.
Love it.
Bipolar disorder, formerly called manic depressive illness or manic depression, is a mental illness that causes unusual shifts in a person's mood, energy, activity levels, and concentration. Hey, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
I think that people
Whew,
shift in
so
mood
much.
and
Yeah.
right. People shift in mood and be like, oh, I'm I'm bipolar. Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't always mean that,
Yeah.
So
Absolutely not.
it it's so
Because
much
mood
more than
shifts
that.
are normal because life is, it changes. So having a shift in your mood is normal, but the way we experience it is totally different.
Hmm.
So different.
Yeah. And I think that the energy, the activity levels and concentration um is something that needs to be highlighted, right? Because
Very top. Yeah.
that's something that really affected me, right? The
Yeah.
concentration, the energy, all of that. Um and definitely the racing thoughts. I think the thing about bipolar that really made me go figure out what was happening outside of the hallucinations
Hmm.
was really like, why can't I turn my brain off? Like, why can't my mind stop thinking?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
and even now, I'm not, I mean, just to be honest with you, that's the thing I struggle with. I struggle with the fact that for the rest of my life,
That's me. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I will have these thoughts. Like,
That I
and
can't
I say,
control.
right. And it's like, okay, normal people don't have to deal with that. Like, I'm not gonna say normal, but it's like
Neurotypical.
regular Joe Schmo.
Yes.
Right. They don't have to deal with, like, they can turn their brains off. I can't go to sleep without medicine. I don't,
Wow.
like, that's a struggle,
My medicine's a little
right?
different. We're gonna talk about that too.
Yeah, like I feel like I take, and just to be real, I take 10 medications a night.
Wow.
That,
Wow.
like, the fact that they said that the only way they can manage, like, and I've been on, child, first of all, these withdrawals from these medicines,
Yes.
uh,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
it's
The
withdrawals
side
from
effects,
medicine can,
everything.
listen, it almost made me wanna commit suicide a lot of times
1000%. Because
because,
if I'm manic and I
like,
take it, it goes from here to here, real like zero to like 100 to zero, real quick.
yep,
Real
yep,
quick.
and I'm just like, when they say they gonna change my medicine, I be like, "No." Even if the medicine isn't working, I be like, "No." Because the
I'm not
withdrawal
dealing with this
symptoms
anymore.
are, right, exactly. They are so
Debilitating.
intense,
Yeah.
like, no. And I'm like, people don't understand those small nuances of things affect a
A
good amount of
grand
your life
scale.
and how you
Absolutely.
live.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's like I can't even explain the medication part, right? And I know
Yeah.
you have kind of you have found different things that work for you maybe
Yeah.
outside of medicine. So I would love to kind of hear your experience with medicine and kind of what you do or what you don't do.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, I was prescribed olanzapine and Prozac. And at
Mm,
that time, my therapist alerted me to let me know that I was definitely dealing with a manic episode at that time, and I was basically
mhm,
rapid cycling. For I was going in
mm,
and out of, oh, and I'm still I've been rapid cycling now since last year. It's been almost a year now. I've been going through
mm,
this cycle. And with the medication, when I was first prescribed it, I took it because at that the racing thoughts were literally at the point where every day I was literally battling, is this today I'm going to give in and kill myself? Because it would be like little
wow.
things like walking past, if you're walking past like a lake, go ahead, you might as well go jump in. You in a car, might as well just swerve. Like walk past
Mm,
kitchen sink and it's like grab the knife. Like little things like that
mm,
I went. So
yep,
I was so eager to take the medication just to turn those thoughts off. But when I think the first week or two when I was on it, I had ended up going to Houston for a photo. I was working on a TV show. This is right after I had gotten my diagnosis. And a friend of mine went with me, and it was the worst trip ever. I had zero
mm,
personality. I'm usually the life of the party. I
mhm.
crack jokes, y'all. I'm a whole clown. I feel like if I wasn't a makeup artist, I would be like, I would knock Monique and all of them out the water because I'm funny. But
Yes.
I'm just saying. And that's probably because I be manic most of the time, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I that trip was like I didn't know who I was. In my mind, I'm like turn up, but in reality, I was just like I didn't talk. I was so mute. And my friend was like, I don't like this version of you. I don't know who this is. I don't like it. And the entire week, I kept
Mm,
taking it because although I felt dull, and I'll be honest, I felt dead, but my mind was quiet. And I was willing to feel as depressed and be as non-social in the life of the party as I was always known to be, just so that my mind could be quiet. I
mm,
was so desperate to just have peace. And people don't understand like fighting with other people is one thing. But when
mhm,
the thing that you have to fight is up here and it stays with you, if you go to the bathroom, it
mm,
follows you. If you go to work, like you can't if another person, you could walk away from them and that's it. But what do you do when that person is literally within yourself? Like trying to fight those thoughts on an
mm,
everyday basis was really hard. And I had to make a conscious decision like, are you going to keep taking the medication? Yes, your thoughts are now quiet, but you don't have a desire to do anything with your kids. You don't have a desire to do anything for
mm.
work. You are just wanting to stay in
Yeah.
bed. It brought me down too much. And after like talking to my therapist and trying out different medications and living in a very legal state. For you, the ones that get it. The ones that don't.
Period.
But when you live
Period.
in a legal state, it's just like I became so eager to find alternatives that would quiet the thoughts, but wouldn't take away from the things that people truly loved about me and the things that I loved about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been medicating medicinally with the herbs from the Lord and from the root in the ground.
Hallelujah. God, we thank you.
Day, like it
Mm-hmm.
has been like, I mean, the way it has changed my life for the better. Like, am I cured for my bipolar? Heck no, I'm probably manic right now. But it has changed it to the point where I'm okay with accepting, you know what, this is probably something I'm gonna live with for the rest of my life, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as up there as I was, this time last year, now that I found different ways to cope. And I think one of the important things too is that during your, when you first get diagnosed and stuff, it's important to recognize what your triggers are. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize with this illness is that although a lot of us experience the same symptoms and the rapid cycling and the depression and the mania and the hypomania, it is really a matter of the learning the triggers that really set me off. Like we discussed earlier, heat. Until you mentioned it, it was something that I had never even considered or thought
Mm-hmm.
about. So, I'm
Mm-hmm.
realizing now that even when I do medicate medicinally, there's certain strains that I can't deal with. And because they induce, if there's a high sativa, I'm gonna be bouncing off the ceiling and paranoid and thinking that,
Mm-hmm.
that following me. But even throughout that journey of self-medication, it still was a
Yeah.
journey of going through, this definitely didn't work, and this caused me to rapid cycle even longer, and this was actually bringing me down. And keeping notes and journaling has been very, very therapeutic, in addition to medicating medicinally. Just being able to write things down
Yeah.
about myself, learning who this new person is, and breaking down and making sense of all of the things that once upon a time just never made sense. So,
Yeah.
medicine,
Yeah.
I want this, this is not for everyone to think that you can't take medicine. This is just
Mm-hmm.
what I'm dealing with. I do plan to get on medicine soon, but I need to do it at a time where I'm going to be home and in a space where if I do deal with an up or a down, it's safe for me to experience that.
And that's so important that you're self-aware. Like, I need to do this when I'm in a safe place and
Yeah.
when I have time to
Myself.
recognize
Yeah.
how I'm feeling. And I think that's what's important about the medication is that you still have to be self-aware or
Yeah.
have somebody who's close to you to say, well, this is how you were.
Bingo.
Because I think it's important. Like, I know that for me, medication was the only thing that happened. I tried CBD. I did
Mm.
I used to don't tell my father, but I used to kill them edibles, okay?
Yeah.
Girl, until I went to the hospital one day. We're not gonna talk about that story. But no, but a lot of it was I just so I found that edibles, they take my mind to a different place. So I don't know if
Mm.
it's because I'm bipolar one, but they do make me paranoid. And then they also, and I'm a woman of faith and I know you are too, but I know that God had told me, like, you don't need to do that because
Mm.
literally every time I was doing it, the devil was playing with my mind.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
was literally a open field in my mind when I was high. Like, it was like,
And I'm the
and
total opposite.
see, and that's
Wow.
why it's important to know yourself,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I had to recognize that it was like, okay, I can't, I can't until I get to a place where I have better control of my mind. I
That's
can't do
crazy.
this.
Because I literally journaled the other day that usually when I am like extremely high, I am literally like almost, from what I can truly say, the best version of myself. Like
Mhm.
it's almost like my brain becomes quiet, and like there's like the way it feels is like there's a bunch of filing cabinets and my brain is like still enough to say this needs to go here,
Wow.
and everything is compartmentalized. I
Mhm.
can get on my iPad and I can design my stuff for work, and I'm at peace. I'm not anxious. I feel confident. It's not like an arrogance, but it's like a girl, you got this. And I
Right.
do have it. So to
Yeah.
hear your experience is like really interesting to see how different they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think for me, I'm not gonna lie, I actually loved being high. I'm not don't let my father see this. But for me, it made me like I love to laugh. Like that's
Me, yeah.
one of the things that really heal me
Yeah.
is laughing,
Me, yeah.
right? So, when you have certain strains, you just laugh, laugh, laugh.
Yes.
I loved laughing,
Yeah.
but it was the after effect that was
Wow.
not healthy for me, right?
Wow.
And so that's why even when like I would try different strains like that's supposed to help me, and maybe when God gives me the go ahead, I need to find somebody who is,
More
you know,
knowledgeable. Yeah.
right, who can say, well, this is based off of you. But that's why I say it's not for everybody,
Everybody.
right? Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
for me, my medicine literally keeps me sane, right?
That's like my friend in
Um,
Houston I was telling you about. She takes
yeah.
Seroquel and she's just like, it's the best thing ever
Yeah, like, you have to do what's
for
best for
you.
you, and
Absolutely.
that's why I tell people, you have to go on a journey to find what's best for you.
Yeah, it truly is
Um,
a journey.
yeah, and if you're supporting someone who is bipolar, you need to just ride the wave with them and try to figure out what's
Yeah,
best for them, because, just like any mental illness, really, the process of trying to figure out what's best for you is like a pain.
literally,
It's really stressful.
yeah.
You literally
Trial and error.
it's been so many times I was like, at this point, I don't care. I just want to
I can't
go.
do this. Yeah, yeah,
Like, I can't
yeah,
because having bipolar disorder is so overwhelming sometimes.
yeah,
And although I make it look good, so to a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, you're happy and that. Yeah, but y'all don't see them times in my closet when I'm rocking back and forth because I really
yeah.
don't want to do this. And my mind is tired, my body is tired, everything is tired, and I really just want to rest. Like,
But you know what's
and I
crazy?
feel like, no, go ahead.
I feel like during those manic times is when we are loved the most, and people see that because like we're our most heightened selves. Like we have this
Mhm.
level, this grandiose boost of confidence that comes along during those manic episodes. We feel invincible into the world. We are often deemed to be, superwoman, or you wear a
Mhm.
cape and this, that, and the third, and they don't realize that these are things that we're doing impulsively. And while sometimes it is for good, a lot of times behind the scenes, you don't get to see the tears and the depleted bank accounts and the scars from when you try to off
Yeah,
yourself. It's
yeah,
just so much that comes along with it that people don't see.
yeah. And that's why I really wanted to start this podcast, I think, because I don't want people to feel like they're alone in some of the things
Yeah,
that they go through, right? Those moments when you're in your closet rocking back and forth and nobody gets that. But I want everyone to know, who has bipolar disorder or anything, like,
yeah,
you're not by yourself, and
absolutely.
it's a hard journey, but you are worth going through that journey
Oh
for.
yeah,
Like, you're worth it.
yeah,
You're worth getting better. You're
yes.
wealth you're worth being hopeful about what could be in your future.
Possibilities.
And I sit here as a serial entrepreneur. I've run 3 businesses. I am a
Hmm.
life trauma and grief coach. I'm a grief educator. I'm a motivational speaker. I run a successful executive assistant agency. Like all these things, and I'm
Yeah.
bipolar.
Yep.
And you are successful. Like when you say your name, it rings bells in the world. Okay. Um, Everybody knows you. And it's just like you have this sweetest spirit. And it's just like you're doing it. And you got 1,100 children, right?
Mhm. 5011 by 5011.
50.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
being a mom, and I have one child, he's 16, but I
Mm.
have one child, and baby, being a mom and being, let's talk about this, because being a mom
Woo!
and being
Yes.
bipolar,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
what do you find the hardest in parenting being bipolar?
Uh, I want to say this, but oh my gosh, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna make sure that my kids don't ever see this. I had to learn to like them. I had to learn
Yeah.
to like them because in those moments, I couldn't stand myself. And I
Woo.
couldn't stand myself because here I was, this mom of these beautiful children that I had zero desire to have a connection with because I felt like I was so crappy of a
Yes.
person that it would be
Yes.
better off if they just didn't even get close to me. And
Mm.
I did the bare minimum, kept them alive, got them stuff for, occasions and
Mhm.
things like that, but I had no real desire, and y'all have no idea how much I'm holding back tears because to even think that once upon a time that I felt that way about the children I brought into this world it is gut-wrenching. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm learning to give myself grace because it's not just because I was just like, ew, kids, but it was just because I was trying to figure out what's going on with me, that what is causing this disconnect. So I am a mom of 6. I have 5 girls, 1 boy.
Oh
My
Lord.
oldest is 14, my youngest is 2. I had him
Mhm.
in 2020. So I am now learning since my separation from my husband, from last summer is when I really started to grow a strong love for my children. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you. I just wasn't the best parent that I could be because I wasn't understanding why I wanted to be in bed all the time. I would go through this period of months where I wouldn't shower. I would make sure my kids showered, but their hair probably didn't wasn't done for a long time. And the thing is that the people around me um wouldn't even step in. It was like
Mm.
well, you don't see their hair needs to be done, but they don't realize that I can't see that because if you look at pictures of myself from
Yeah.
just 2 years ago, I look like a totally different person now. And realizing
Mhm.
now that, as a mom with bipolar disorder, I'm realizing that having these conversations and not hiding my diagnosis from my children was the best thing I could have ever
Mhm.
done because now it allows them to realize that if I do something or if I say something that's not very favorable, I am really big on apologizing to them, but it also, not that it excuses it, but they are better understanding as to why I reacted a certain way. And when I
Mhm.
do come back to, I'm like, mommy messed up. I should have not said that. I should not have done that.
Yeah.
And, please let me know if I do or say anything that hurts you
Mhm.
because yes, I'm your mom, but I'm not perfect and I'm still trying to
Mhm.
figure out who I am and how this illness is really going to impact me and affect the way that I do parent y'all, especially now as a single mom. So it has been quite the challenge. But when I say the amount of grace and the love that my children have extended to me over this past year alone has just been so incredible to see these small children encourage me in ways that I
Mhm.
would have never deemed to be imaginable. So, um, you can be a great parent even with bipolar. You don't, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You can be perfectly flawed and perfectly imperfect, and your kids will love you just because you're authentic. And that is the most beautiful part
Mhm.
about our journey right now is the level of
Yeah.
authenticity, the vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think I only have one child, but my son is older now. But I think when I was diagnosed, it was scary for me. I think I was more on the line like, I don't want him to get this, right?
Yes, yes,
And it was very scary. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could give my child this. I'm a
yeah,
terrible mom."
yeah,
Like, I really struggle with the I could I could give my son this. And for a while that really took me down, right?
Wow.
Because my son did deal with some things when he was younger mentally,
Mhm.
and I blamed myself. I was like, "Oh, it was
Too.
me. I did it. It
Me
was," you
too.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's really not bipolar disorder is not something like you grab and you just go.
Like,
No, it's
yeah,
literally a
like a
chemical
Pokemon. Yeah.
imbalance. Right, like it's a
Yeah.
chemical imbalance. You can't even control it
You
in
can't.
yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because who would choose to be bipolar? Like, I didn't choose this. It
Really
chose
don't.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, for those people out there who are like, I don't want my children to get it, or I don't want to have children because
Because of it.
they could
Yeah.
get a lot of things.
Yeah.
They could get a
Yeah.
lot of things. And unfortunately, it's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is be the best parent that you can be.
Absolutely.
And I think the second thing for me is I have these episodes, right? Where I start shaking and like
Mhm.
it's probably very traumatic for other people to see. My wife is so amazing that, she knows what's happening, but it took me a long time to allow other people to see, right?
Yeah.
So I am very good at I'm gonna wait till I get home to let this go, right?
Mhm.
And it was hard sometimes, right? So I could be somewhere and I know
Ooh,
I'm ready to
ooh.
explode. I know I'm ready to explode,
Yeah.
right? But I'm like, I cannot do this
Yeah.
around these people, right? And so you hold it.
Yep.
You're like, no. And then as soon as I get in the car, like it's like I wait till I'm safe. And the reality of the situation is there are not a lot of safe places for bipolar people.
Yeah. And here's the reality, like hearing you speak so highly of your wife, it was like I didn't have that. So it was like I didn't have a space in the outside world. I didn't have a space in my home. So it was
Mhm.
just like, I don't have anywhere that I can go to release this. I don't have anywhere that I can go where I can feel safe because with my husband knowing what my diagnosis was, he played up a lot of that, and it was almost like a, oh, this is open season now, this is, I can
Mm,
really manipulate the mind. And it got to the point, and this
mm,
is like right prior to my diagnosis, it was like a, he was excited every time I would go through these depressive episodes, and I had no one that was there to like pull me out of it, so I just kept sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. And having support with this illness is, especially when you're a parent, is really important. I did not have that. And to be honest with you, outside of like a few close friends, I don't have a lot of support with this because it's not acknowledged and it doesn't exist.
mm.
It's just, it can be prayed away. You just need to go back to church and this, and you just need to do this. And if you just, no, 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 that's not it. That's not how it works. It's not something you just pray away. And not to say that God can't do it, but that's just not how
Yeah,
this works, and
yeah,
I wish that we got the same,
yeah.
treatment like other illnesses.
I I am so sorry, first of all, that you didn't have a safe place,
Yeah.
right? I think I was blessed in the fact that um my wife was one of the ones who was like, "No, something is wrong with you."
Mm.
And it's not just depression. Like you're
Yeah,
gonna have
yeah.
like he forced me like, "No, you're gonna have to go." And there were many times when I fought my wife, like physically, like
Mhm.
I'm not going to therapy, I'm not going to the psychiatrist, like you tripping, like we about to break up. Like, and me and my wife have been together over 10 years, right? And it's like I'm being very honest. I'm not gonna cry on here. But I'm being very honest. I don't know outside of God, because we know that God has kept us. We know
Yeah.
this. But in the natural world, I don't know where I would be on my journey without my wife.
Wow.
There was so and one thing you find out, right? You find out who your real friends are in this,
Yeah.
because I had friends who came over and were like,
Yeah.
listen, let me hold you. Let me what can I do?
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I had my friend Amanda, I was working at the time, I was working at Johns Hopkins,
Mm.
and I was actually working in the psych space, right? And I was working with kids though, and literally it felt like I could speak to them because I knew what a lot of them were going through.
Yeah.
But then I didn't have that same experience. Like I could tell, like a lot of people don't even know like what bipolar is. Like
Yeah.
the
Very ignorant.
stigma is, and I this is so important. When I asked people, real people, what do
What
they
do
think bipolar disorder
It's
is?
two extremes.
They said it's the crazy person disease.
Mhm. They just think you're
Some
either really, really happy or you're really sad. That's it.
Somebody else said, ah, that's the one. That's why people are do mass shootings.
Yeah.
So they are relating bipolar disorder to mass shootings.
Yep.
Somebody else said they need to be in jail.
Yeah, I've heard things like that. I've seen them in forums. Yeah, it is so hurtful. Yep.
I
Yeah.
so I really know that um a lot of people don't have the support, right? And the
Mm-mm.
reason why I really wanted to start this podcast is because people think they're by themselves, and they're like, who can I talk to about the things that's happening?
Yeah.
And when you're on a journey to be better, you need guidance along the way, or you
Oh,
need
yes.
help, or just
Oh,
somebody.
yeah.
Like imagine in your journey how it would feel just to hear somebody say,
I
listen,
understand or,
yeah, I understand. I
Mhm.
know the withdrawals are gonna be crazy. Let me just
Yes.
warn you. Like anything, and not
Yeah.
saying that you have to tell them what to do, but you're giving them some hope,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
because I did not take my diagnosis seriously at first because I was like, my life is over. Like I'm not gonna be
Me
able to
too.
do anything. They might as well just put me in. They're probably gonna put me in the institution.
Yeah, yep.
But a diagnosis of bipolar disorder is not the end of life.
The end of the
It's not the
world.
end of
No.
life. It
Honestly,
is
that's when mine
literally.
began.
Mhm.
That's when mine began, literally. That's
Mhm.
exactly when mine started. Because now I have a clear
On
focus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, so I want to talk about something, and and I'm doing this because one of the spaces that I'm very passionate about and that is really important to me is the grief space, right? I
Mhm.
am a life trauma and grief coach. I have an organization called Those Without Mothers, who targets those
Mhm.
people who had lost their mothers and need support, need resources, right?
Wow.
And navigating grief with bipolar disorder is very, very different.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes,
Um,
it is.
so tell me about your experience with grief and bipolar disorder. Because I know, especially, and you're still kind of in the process,
Mhm.
like you're not, it's
Yeah.
fresh for you,
Really, really fresh.
right?
Yeah.
So how does that feel for you?
For me, it is like a whirlwind. So my dad went missing in December of 2021. We still have not found him up to this day. And it's
Yeah.
like when people think of grief, yes, it's often associated with death, but I also have to grieve the fact that I may never get closure. And I try to keep
Mhm.
busy to keep my mind off of it. But in those moments where I'm by myself, and I have a friend here who's with me now, and she comes here every single day, which I am so grateful for because I need that. Because when I'm by myself and my thoughts get crazy, I don't know how to quiet them. And a lot of times I'm just like, I have a thing where I go through my camera roll and I'll look at pictures of my father, and I'm just like, my brain can't process this man literally disappeared and we cannot find him. Like, I cannot wrap my mind around that. And a lot of times I pray, like, God, can we at least just find his body so we can give him a proper send off? And I can at least process now. I have to grieve the fact that I'm never going to see him again. But that thought of never going to see him again is very different because I don't know. And when I
Mhm.
am going through those, the coming down from my hypomanic manic episodes, and that depression sinks in, all of the things that happened to me over the years that are like unresolved, or I haven't healed from,
Mhm.
literally pop up in those moments of stillness. Oh, remember that time when so and so
Yeah.
told you that you was ugly? Or you remember that time
Yes.
that you thought, or you remember that time you went to
Yes.
school and you wasted all that money? Like, those things come up, and I have to grieve. Like, even that is a part of grief. I have to grieve the time that I lost in my teenage years because I wasn't properly diagnosed. I have to grieve the times, throughout my adulthood, that I thought having babies, would keep a man, because I got this diagnosis now, and at least if I can do this thing now, I'll be deemed worthy enough to keep around. So I have
Mhm.
to grieve all of those things. But even so, it's almost like how do you grieve in a healthy way when you are literally trying to quiet the thoughts, but still be mature enough to acknowledge the way those thoughts make you
Mhm.
feel, and internalizing them in a
Mhm.
healthy way to say it's okay to feel sad, but you can't feel so sad now where you don't want to live anymore. Like, trying to measure your grief in a way, and it's hard because it's like, I have all right to feel the way I feel, but with this illness you have to literally stop and assess, if you are aware,
Yeah.
and figure out the measure of grief now for yourself that's healthy. Because, like, the neurotypical person who experiences grief, they can, process, I am feeling this right now, and tomorrow maybe another day of grief, and then by next week they're okay. And of course, as the years go on, they'll have their bouts, but for the most part they are learning to adjust. With us, it is different. You'll go through, like with me, when I first heard about my dad, it was like this feeling of numbness came over me. And it
Mm.
was like, okay, we're not even going to process this. We're not going to deal with this. Boop. Remember that filing cabinet we talked about? It was
Yeah, yeah.
in the wrong one somewhere in the back. And when one of the last episodes I had about 2 weeks ago, I woke up one day and I was just like bawling because I realized for over a year I've been acting like I'm so strong and I haven't really processed it. And I started to journal, and I sat down, I started to pray, and I was like, God, I need to cry. I need to get one good cry out, but I want you to remove anything. I know that this is a diagnosis that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, but just give me 5 minutes where I can grieve like a normal person. I don't want to be grieving and crying and sobbing, and my brain is like thinking about 50 other things like the laundry. I want to be able to focus on this one thing and grieve that and process that. And I need you to guide me, to let me know, how am I supposed to go about the rest of my days processing this while still battling this illness. I need to be able to grieve. And I feel like a lot of us, especially those of us with bipolar disorder, we try to avoid things like grief because we don't want to trigger certain emotions, because depression,
Mhm.
mania comes about. But we have to
Yep.
find healthy ways to grieve, because grief is going to come, whether it's in the loss of a home or a job, or anything else that's unfortunate. It's going to come, but we just have to find healthy ways. So that is really like my one of my biggest things right now, is just acknowledging the way I feel and realizing that what I feel is valid, and I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy
Mhm.
for grieving my dad, who although I haven't seen him in years. At one point I was feeling like, well, you don't even deserve that because you ain't seen him in, like, 3 years. But at the same time, it's like, if I don't take the real time to process what I'm feeling, this is going to come up again during another manic episode. It's going to either come again when I'm coming down from another manic episode, and if I don't learn and to find a way to process this out, that thought will never be quiet. It'll always be so very loud. So my advice really is to surround yourself with people who give you the space to grieve and to grieve
Mhm.
in a healthy way. Having that support, I cannot tell you enough how vital that is to have people not to validate, your foolishness, but to let you know, okay, yes, Shamika, I know you're feeling sad today, and I understand. You know why you're feeling sad. Like people who are going to walk you through the process. Yes, a therapist is great for that too, but when you have people around you who are intentional about learning the things about you, it
Mhm.
makes all the world of difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing that, because that is a unique experience, right?
Yeah.
Because first of all, let's be clear, grief is not exclusive to death, right?
Bingo.
You can grieve a career,
Yes.
relationships,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes people like, I don't know what grief feels like. You've grieved as
You-
everybody has,
Something. A pet
right?
died.
And
Something. Yeah.
so, yeah, exactly. And so, one of the reasons why I became a grief coach was because when I was going through what I was going through, I found that I love therapy. I think therapy is amazing.
Me too.
But for me, I needed somebody who I can talk to once a week. But throughout the week, when I was having these crises, like I talk to my clients throughout the week. If they
Yeah.
call me, because they get homework, all that stuff, if they call me, like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but like, let's figure this out. And I think that you have to be clear about what you need. That's number one.
Yes.
Um, because if you know you're a person that needs to grieve in silence,
Yeah.
you need to allow people to be there for you. Just tell them be quiet,
Be
right?
quiet. Be here and be quiet.
Because yeah, because isolating yourself as a bipolar person is very
Oh
dangerous.
my gosh. Yes, it is.
And let me
Oh
just
gosh.
say this: if you are bipolar and you know you isolate,
Whew, don't do it.
please stop that cycle.
Don't do it.
Because a lot of times when you are left alone,
That's
especially
when.
when grieving, when you leave yourself alone and you are left alone with your own thoughts,
Oh
a
man,
lot of times they are not positive thoughts.
not at all.
You are telling yourself stuff that does not exist. You are
Yeah,
telling yourself self stuff that just should not be even recognized.
yeah,
And so be clear that find a circle, find a grief circle,
oh
find
my
one
gosh.
person
Yeah, a
that
safe
can hold
place.
you
Yeah,
accountable, a safe
yeah.
place. And I think it's very important that we choose people in our lives who make you feel safe.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh
Because I think
yeah.
sometimes there are seasons in our life where we just pick people who can hang out and who cool, right? We pick up stragglers. Because I used
And
to
a
be
lot
a
of times
straggler
we do
person. My wife
that
used
too because we feel strange and like as if we don't belong. So the first group that accepts us, we just think, okay, we gotta stick with it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And let me tell you something. I am a recovered people pleaser. I'm happy to say it.
Oh
I'm
yes.
recovered.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh yeah.
recovered. And one of the things that I recognized about myself was that I wanted people to like me because I wanted to feel like I was a part of the normal people. But at the
Oh
end of the
man.
day, I was made like when people say you're bipolar, yes, I was meant to listen. Bipolar chose me. And so you can
Absolutely.
either have the perspective of it's something wrong with me or
Yeah.
have the perspective that it's my superpower.
Absolutely. It is. Some of my greatest
And guess
ideas
what?
have come from these.
With every superpower comes side effects, comes things
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
whatever you don't
Take the
like.
good with the
But
bad. Yeah.
but you it's your superpower. Use it
Absolutely. It is. It
and
truly
lean
is.
into it.
It truly,
But
truly
don't
is.
let it destroy you.
Yeah. That's key.
So isolation, not good. Not good. So when my mom died, that's what actually unlocked my diagnosis. I think I am a church girl at heart, and I grew up. Thank you all for tuning in to part one of this episode of the Being Bipolar podcast with Shameka. Part two of this episode will be released on May 24th on Spotify and YouTube. Can't wait for you to hear.